Hello, is anybody here? You don't have to be afraid. I'm just here to talk with you. I am a seasoned paranormal investigator with a growing resume. I began investigating the paranormal when I was 16 years old, where I learned the tricks of the trade from a dear friend of mine. Since then, I've been a paranormal tour guide at the Ohio State Reformatory, have been on paranormal teams where I have investigated private homes, and have given presentations on real-life ghost busting. Now, I'm on a quest to explore all realms of the paranormal through expert interviews. I'm Sydney Miller, and this is Not Afraid. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode number 3 here. Tonight, I have 2 special guests with me. My new co-host, Jennifer VanBoskerck, is going to be joining me from this point further. And I know Jennifer from investigating with the South Carolina Paranormal Research and Investigations Group, which I was a part of for 2 years while I was living in South Carolina. So she is going to jump on this journey with me and continue through season 2. And then we have another special guest with us tonight who Jennifer is going to tell us a little bit about.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited about being your co-host on Not Afraid. It's a great opportunity. And for myself, just to let you know, like you said, my name is Jennifer VanBoskerck. I live in Myrtle Beach. I got to know Sydney when she joined South Carolina Paranormal Research and Investigations. I'm currently been investigating since 2015 and recently applied for a position with the Warren Legacy Foundation. And that's how I met Kenneth Holden, who is the regional director of the Midwest. And so I'm going to let him introduce himself.
My name is Kenneth Holden. I am the regional director for the Midwest for the Warren Legacy Foundation for Paranormal Research. I am a psychic medium and healer. I've been now with the foundation for a little over 5 years. I just entered, celebrated my anniversary with them. So, and I actually know Jennifer from her joining the foundation. And I was glad to be here with y'all tonight.
Fantastic, Kenneth. Well, thank you for agreeing to join us, and I am super excited to talk about tonight's topic. Welcome to I'm Not Afraid of the Afterlife, the Warren Foundation. So we're going to talk about the Warren Foundation at the end of the episode, but first I want to take the steps to get there. So you have insider knowledge, I presume, on the famous Ed and Lorraine Warren. Tell me a little bit about them, their history and their history of investigating the paranormal, because there's a lot of really misconceptions out there, and a lot of stuff you read online is false, and there's a lot of really misconceptions and just things. They're really controversial in a lot of ways. So I want you to clarify for us what you know about Ed and Lorraine.
Well, with Ed and Lorraine, for me, growing up, Lorraine actually hid her abilities for many years. And when she finally decided to, it was God-given, right? It was a gift to her. She started using it more. She confided in her husband. And for example, when it came to cases, it wasn't just something, oh, let me go here and do this like most people would today. For example, Amityville. She was actually called in after the fact, after everything happened, but she knew something was going on in that house because she would actually travel by the house a good bit. She knew something was going on. She knew it was not something godly. It wasn't something of the light. So eventually one day she stopped, and at the time she sold fine china, and she offered to sell them. That's how she got in the home. But one thing I will say is one of the biggest things, even on Facebook, that gets me and it kind of burns me a little bit, is a lot of people do call her a fake. She wasn't. She was the real deal. She was a medium. And as a psychic medium myself, the way we interpret what we see, what we feel is different from medium to medium. Did she enjoy being in the limelight? To some degree, I will say that. Her grandson, Chris, who is co-founder of the Warren Legacy Foundation, has even admitted this to us, but she wasn't in what she did to gain popularity, to gain fame, or any money. She did it to help people because of her gifts. Another thing that I hear people discuss quite a bit are the movies. I can tell you, a lot of people believe what they see in the movies. Very small portions are actually real, to overlook them. Hollywood loves to take a fact and twist it 1,000 ways. One of the most famous ones that they have done is Annabelle. They claim she is possessed. She's not possessed. She has an attachment, which is why the doll is locked away, has salt, and is blessed continuously by a priest, from my knowledge, a few times a week. And if activity is up quite a bit, it's more than that. Currently, their daughter Judy and her husband Tony Spira actually watch over the museum and their home. I do believe now they have a caretaker, but I'm not 100% sure. The newest movie that's out, there was quite a bit of information that people are challenging because of Arnie. I will tell you for a fact that Arnie did spend about, I think it was 5 or 6 years in prison. He did get out, he got married. Later on, he did get mad, especially at the production of this movie. With The Conjuring, the Perron family got mad with the movie. But these are the only two that you actually hear have issues with the movies that portray their families or themselves. This is because these families feel that the Warren family profited way much more than they did. This isn't true. At best, you get a little bit of rights to a specific position, and it doesn't pay a whole lot. That's it. As a matter of fact, if you look to The Conjuring at all the deleted scenes, if you're lucky enough to be able to find them, you will find that in The Conjuring movie, when it shows Lorraine Warren in the audience, next to her was her son-in-law, Tony, and then some of the Perron family members. But they were all cut out except for Lorraine. Right? That's Hollywood. Like,
Now you were talking about Lorraine and her, she's clairvoyant. And of course, Ed, he was a demonologist. Of course, I can't remember, was he ordained with the church of being a demonologist, or what was his role in some of the investigations with Lorraine?
Ed was a demonologist, but he was not ordained by the church. Did he ever perform an exorcism? Personally, to my knowledge, he has not. He has assisted, but not been the outright performer. Most of the cases, especially once they started getting a name for themselves, were actually from the church. They were pulled in by the Catholic Church.
So in these movies that show him actually doing the exorcism himself are completely fabricated.
Exactly.
And like in the last movie, I believe it was, they showed him having a heart attack during.
He did have a heart attack from one of the cases. That
is true.
But as far as him doing the exorcism himself, to my knowledge, that never happened.
Wow. Okay. Now, why did they really, I guess, pursue the paranormal investigating before it was really mainstream? Is to help people? What was their main agenda?
This assist people who needed the help. Lorraine was very devout with her religion and very devout with assisting all those in need. And in need as we know, comes in more than one form. It's not money, it's not just time, but it can be spiritual as well. And she provided the spiritual.
And their process, whenever they really got into it, what was the process of determining which cases, or their processes of investigating and determine which cases were legit or which were just things going wrong, or, you know, people just making things up? What was their process?
When they received the initial reports, they would scrutinize it like we would today, and then go on site. And before they say, oh, well, this is what's going on, that's what's going on. No, they try to prove that it was fake. You want to have an explanation for what you were hearing or experiencing. Now, if they could not explain, then that's when Lorraine would kick in, see if she could channel and see what may be unseen that's on the property. Sometimes by doing this, it could invoke what was ever there to make things come a little bit more alive, where Ed could experience them. She did not propagate. This is something that happened naturally. It still happens today. So even when she did, go ahead.
I'm sorry, you finished what you're saying.
She would do it, and then as soon as Ed could experience it, that's when a team would go in. They would set up whatever cameras they had for the time being. They're recording information, ask questions, get answers, and they would record everything. Because if it was something that was bad enough where there was a potential for a demonic entity, then they would actually turn it over to the Catholic Church for review.
Oh, okay.
And if it was something they deemed that was demonic, they knew potentially they would have to have an exorcist. And at that time, that's what you had to do. And the church, if approved, was sent in an exorcist.
Interesting. So this is an important point to bring up. A lot of the TV shows today, it's an hour, and with commercials, it's like 45 minutes of investigating. And the point that people miss is that nobody ever goes into a home for one night and has an answer. So the Warrens, you're saying, they go in and they investigate repeatedly, multiple nights, however long it takes, in order to collect all the evidence and get an answer.
Correctly.
Yeah, that's one big issue. Sorry.
We still do that today. We have cases now with the foundation that's several years old.
Wow.
Because we're constantly sending people in and trying to experience and capture enough evidence. But luckily now we don't have to go through the Catholic Church, because the way that the Catholic Church does exorcisms now is that they're not really seen as part of the church. They're kept at arm's length. So they are more available for us to get to without having to go through the actual church.
So are you saying that the foundation has people that can perform exorcisms without going through the church?
Yes.
Wow.
In multiple faiths.
Got you. All right. That's interesting. Did not realize that. I always assumed you still had to go through the Catholic Church and get permission and have someone come out.
The only thing with the Catholic Church, if you're using them, you have to wait for their scrutiny. That could be years upon years. And, during that time, someone could get seriously hurt. They could die, and then the church just rubs it off of their hands. So you have to have people of multiple faiths that can deal with anything at any given time.
Interesting. So by multiple faiths, do you mean does it connect with the faiths of the family that's having the issue, like whether that family is Catholic or whether that family is Buddhist, or does it connect with the spirit that's there? How does that work?
It doesn't really reside within the spirit. It's with the family and the person that's under the possession.
Okay.
Because if you are one religion, you bring in another religion, it's not going to really work. It's not your faith. It's all about intent. If you got that intent to get this entity away from you, then it'll get away. It'll be a fight, but you want to keep within lines and respectfully of the religion of the person and the family.
Now, what if the family doesn't have a certain religion or is not a religious family? Like, supposedly the parents were, they didn't have a certain religion, or they don't.
Typically at that point, then we will actually just send in a Christian exorcist. If that is unfruitful, then we will bring someone else in after some more questioning and some more historical digging on yourself and your family. And if we can kind of figure out, okay, you may not believe in this, but we know you believe in this other. So then we'll bring someone that deals with this other in to help you out.
Interesting. So we're kind of hinting at it. Obviously, from the name Ed and Lorraine Warren, we get the Warren Foundation. So how does this come into being? Tell me about how we get from Ed and Lorraine Warren and Amityville and the Conjuring series that we've seen in movies, and you've discussed that. Obviously, it's not entirely accurate. How do we get from what they actually did to today, 2021, and you being a part of the Warren Foundation and continuing their legacy?
Well, when Ed and Lorraine first got started and they had to have team members, they created what's called NESPR, which is the New England Society of Paranormal Research. It is still around. As the second movie with the Enfield case in England, they saw that they needed a international group, but there's no one at the time that they could work with. So of course, yes, they traveled quite a bit. But over time, with Judy growing up and then having her son Chris and other family members, they all grew up doing paranormal research. The last few years, especially after the Conjuring movie come out, our founder Chris sat down with his grandmother and discussed her old idea of having an international group. He oversaw everything, got it into being along with Lorraine, and then of course Lorraine passed away. So now Chris is the head. Do we work with NESPR? If they need us, we will, and vice versa. But at this time, we are two totally different entities working under the same instruction and guidance from Ed and Lorraine. So after they actually got it started, we had two directors, one that covered the United States. Then you had Chris that covered South America and specific islands. And then we had another one that covered just the UK. Now, those two directors have moved on with their life. Scale too hectic. So now we have this whole regional directors. We have them all over the United States. Currently, we have, I want to say it is 7 or 8 in the US. We have someone in the UK. We have someone in Australia, New Zealand. We've become complete full round circle. We have actually encompassed the entire globe now, except for a few countries. But like I said, we still carry on with what Ed and Lorraine Warren did. We still work with psychic mediums who worked with, at the beginning, it was just Christian, great Christian. But Chris had the foresight and the knowledge from his grandparents to actually expand it into all religions. And we continue to grow. Every day we're getting applications, people want to join. The word's getting out there that we are accepting. But we do want people with experience. And if things keep going the way they are, hopefully within the next 10 years, we actually would love to be able to open up a school and teach everybody the techniques of Ed and Lorraine. And people can truly see how actually doing research differs from being a paranormal hunter or a ghost hunter and what the television series showed.
That actually brings me to a good question. The difference in what the Warren Foundation does compared to your typical ghost hunter. Give me a little description of being a paranormal investigator myself, and also Sydney being a paranormal investigator. Can you tell us kind of what the Warren Foundation looks for in a actual investigator, researcher considered instead of a hunter?
There's a clear difference when you fill out your application and we do an actual interview with you. Typically, a hunter will say, oh, yeah, they enjoy doing this and doing that, like going to graveyards. They go to people's actual homes and they're doing investigation, but they don't really gather the evidence. They do maybe one or two and then they stop. If that's all you're going to do, then you're just a ghost hunter. Good researcher, and one thing that we do really push, it does take multiple trips. And usually before anyone steps foot onto a property to deal with the case, there's already been a ton of work done beforehand. We've researched the history of the land, the family, everyone involved, even down to the neighbors if need be. For example, there's a case I worked in North Carolina last year. Before we went, the lead on that case had already had information dating back 200 years on the property. And then once I got on the property and I actually used my abilities, I took it back even farther. He gave a reading on the land, the house, and everything. He fact checked everything. That's big. You need to check your facts. If you're not going to do that, why are you doing this? So most people, like I said, they go in, want to, they're out, don't do anything really, and they don't give solutions to what they find. That's a biggie. If you find that you have poltergeist activity, that you have potential elemental activity, anything like that, you've got to be knowledgeable enough to be able to sit down with the people on that property, come to a solid solution, and get rid of them. Or at least if it's something that cannot be gotten rid of because it is attached to the land, then you got to be able to say, okay, well, this is what you need to do if this starts going on. And it will cause it to back away for a while and give you some good rest, foundation, whatever you need. You got to be willing to help and make yourself there available 24/7, even if it's for a phone call. I get phone calls from people I worked cases years ago, still to this day.
Wow, that's some real commitment. So, can you tell us a little bit about your research process? Because I know that's something that we tried to do when we're going into cases, but we're never really super successful because it's kind of hard to find some of those property records and some of those history, especially for places that are in an area where they just don't keep that sort of history. So do you have any sort of subscriptions to like certain websites, or how do you go about doing that?
I have no subscription. If you're looking on to a property, for example, if you know that, let's say the house is less than 20 years old, look to the local historical society for what they can get. They'll have some information, but one thing that people never look to is on the state level. The state level has public records, and sometimes you do have to pay to get those unless you go on site. Hit those, and it's going to take some time. You have to be very diligent in your notes while you're doing this whole process, because the only thing it has to take is one name, one little activity like a battle, for example, and it can actually open up the doorway to everything else. I have noticed before when I've done research, just general research for people, that I can take a name that's from 100 years ago, type it into Google, and put their name along with maps, and it will actually pull up the maps of the person's property up to 100, sometimes even 200 years prior, depending on the state and how they worked the records at the time. Some records are very hard to get because, honestly, places got burned down, 150, 200 years ago and older. So there's no known knowledge. So then you have to go by word of mouth, get the people that have lived there the longest. Look up the roots of the earliest families, because a lot of those people, especially if they've got some money, have a family Bible. And those family Bibles, back then, they would record deaths, births, and even major events happening in the area.
That's interesting. So I work at a historical society, actually, and we have people come in all the time asking about, they bought this old building in town, or they have an old house and they want history on it. And we honestly, other than having the city directories, we pretty much have to turn them away because we don't carry those kind of records, and we give them a list of places that might carry them. But the Bible thing, My director was just talking about there's an area in the county where it did burn, the courthouse burned, and all the records burned with it. So the only way that we have of collecting those lost histories is through these family Bibles that we find from time to time. So that's interesting. So what is the mission of the Warren Foundation, would you say? And when was it started and why?
Ooh. As far as the actual original date, I would say that would have to be right after the Conjuring movie, the first one come out, because that's when he really sat down with his grandmother and got the ball rolling on it. As far as our mission, we're just here to help people. We want to be able to gather enough research to show science and other religions. Spirits are around us. There's nothing to be afraid of. The only thing that you need to be afraid of in life is the living. The dead ain't gonna do nothing to you, not unless you pee them off. And even then, it's gonna be to scare you. Honestly, but that's it. We want to help people. You're not alone in trying to figure things out. You're not crazy, unless you have something from a psychiatrist, psychologist. You're not crazy. Everybody. One of the things people don't really realize, and it's something I do enforce if I do interviews with people, is, we all have empathic abilities. If you think about it, we are all machines. We are energy, and spirit is energy, so we are able to read them depending on how far away they are from us and what they want us to know. We are in death as we are in life, and that's what we pick up on. So there's times, you go into a haunted house, you're trying to do research, and you get scared, and you just want to run, and it's not naturally you. You're picking up on something that's there. So, we want to be there with you. We want to walk you through everything you're going through. And if you get too scared, that's fine. We're here to help no matter what.
Now, out of all the cases, pretty much that the foundation has done, you always hear all the hype on some of these TV shows about, oh, it's demonic, it's demonic, it's demonic. How many cases would you really say are truly demonic possession cases? Are there that many out there?
No. In the time that I've been with the foundation, that's recorded 3 in 5 years.
Right.
And that's been in 2 in the UK and 1 in Latin America.
And now you've been with the foundation for how long again?
A little over 5 years now.
That's right. Yeah, there's too much emphasis put on thinking everything's demonic when, you can just be a evil, benevolent spirit. There's just, if you're mean in life, you're typically mean in death,
Yes. Very.
I mean, it's true.
I've seen it.
You're honoring.
I worked a case where, the spirit was causing a lot of issues. It was so bad that actually a television show came in and actually did investigation, offered a solution, and it was crap. I will say that. But when I went on, I saw the spirit and I saw, had a nice little conversation with it, trying to figure out what was going on. And when the truth come out, he's got a thing of for women. He tries to dominate them. He's scared of men. Why? Because his second stepmother actually molested him quite a bit in life. And he had a very mean grandpa, and his daddy was just as mean. So, of course, he'd be less scared of women and want to dominate them, but he would fear men. If a man walked in the room, he would literally stop what he's doing and shut up like a good little boy. But he's a grown man.
Yeah, I think I remember that case you were telling me about, that he was sexually abusing. A lot of bad things were going on in that case.
And that's one thing, that carries over. If we have any traumatic experiences in this life, if we don't find a resolution for them in the living, then we're carrying over when we die. And then you're going to get stuck, honestly, until you have someone that has abilities, can sit down and assist you, or be able to pull spirit that can assist you. And you're not going to cross over. You're going to be stuck in limbo. And over time, that energy builds up, and then you get some of the hauntings and dealings that we have to deal with.
Right. Now we know how long you've been with, but what actually brought you to the foundation? What made you decide that you wanted to join?
Well, at the time, I owned a metaphysical and holistic company, and I had people coming in all the time. I got to a point where I could not deal with business using my abilities. And just one day, one of my friends said, "Oh, well, I'm friends with Chris McKenna, yada, yada, yada." And I'm like, okay, that's nice. But I messaged him because I heard they were accepting some positions at the time. He contacted me, and within a few months, I was a member of the foundation. I've been here ever since.
Yeah, during my interview, after I got accepted, I applied and I was offered the position. Chris later messaged me and wanted to speak, wanted to personally speak with me and get to know me. And he's a really nice guy, very nice guy, very knowledgeable, very concerned for, people's well-being. He's really not into the paranormal as much as people would think. He wants to help people, take along his grandparents,
Well, he is a preacher.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a preacher, so yeah. But one thing I think is really cool about Lorraine is something I never knew until talking to Chris and then doing some digging to find out. Lorraine, even when she was up until she couldn't, deal with the public because of her health, you could call her any day, any time of the night. She'd pick up that phone and you could have a conversation with her. Anyone in the public could do it. She didn't care.
Wow, that would have been really cool. Just bucket list item, have a conversation with Lorraine Warren.
Well, get with the psychic medium. Good.
And Chris is kind of the same way, at least I found anyway. I told me to message him anytime. Now it's harder to call him because he's now he was in Costa Rica. Now he's moved somewhere else. He moves around a lot, but he's a super nice guy. And I feel very fortunate that Kenneth and the other Kenneth and Chris welcome me onto the team. And so I think we've already went over kind of the process of how whenever the foundation gets cases, you follow through research, multiple interviews, trying to actually, if I'm not mistaken, they try to really debunk things first. Correct me if I'm wrong now. But they just don't take things at face value, and that's what I liked. Just because you hear a knock on the door, let's find out what it is, or they see something, let's find out. You're having sleep paralysis. Well, do you have a medical condition? That's one thing that I was really impressed with the foundation. They dig deep and try to find out, what are the other possibilities besides just being paranormal that it could be, and once all of those have been eliminated, then move forward. Am I correct? Correct me if I'm wrong now.
That is correct. And if we feel that there may be an underlying mental condition that you're not telling us, or because we can detect when there is mental issues in sometimes just the way you write, we can pick up on it on the actual intake sheets. Or if we're doing an actual interview face-to-face or a call, depending on how you're acting and stuff that you're doing, we'll know automatically, okay, this is a mental condition. And at that point, before we actually come back out, we're going to say, okay, we suggest you speak to one of our psychologists or psychiatrists. Because we do have some that work with the foundation. Do they go on cases? No. We don't want them out there dealing with that. We want them dealing to make sure every client is having the mental relief that they need, even if we're on location. So yeah, we got psychiatrists, psychologists we work with, even therapists if we need it.
That's interesting because most of us just think, your background, your two subject matters is, a little bit of science when it comes to using some of the tools and technology, and then, history, and that's it. But you guys go into psychology, maybe a little bit of sociology, and some of the deeper subject matters that most of us would never even consider putting in our back pocket when entering a haunted location.
Mm-hmm. Which is one of the reasons why, if you say you need assistance, you can email us on this day. The next day we'll have, or I should say within the next few days, we'll have one of our regional directors actually review. Then they'll contact another director that may be available for an interview at a certain date and time. And then we will literally prolong it. because we want to see, okay, is there a change? Does something change up? Is your mental conditioning changing? We take all the notes on this. We keep records of everything, and it's all recorded. And then that way, if we go on site, it can be literally a month or 2 months before we go on site, unless we feel, okay, there is actual room for possession. It is demonic case. Then as soon as we get a team together, we're on site. So that can take less than a week. But everything else, we will stretch it out because we want to see the changes. We want to see what's going on.
That was going to be my next question. Now, what if it was something really bad and the foundation prolonged it and they end up getting severely hurt? But you just answered that question. So if you feel like it's truly something that is life or death or life threatening or whatever, you jump right on it.
Yep.
So now, I know I joined and I know, the process or whatnot, but can you explain to us exactly what the steps are to be able to get onto the Warren Legacy Foundation to become a member?
It's quite easy, honestly. You just go to our website, warrenlegacy.com. There's a section on there where you can request help or to join as a member. Once you do that, we will have someone contact you, set up an actual Skype interview. We will interview. Sometimes the interviews can last 30 minutes. I've had them last up to 2 hours. It just depends on the answers you're giving us and what we're feeding off of you. And then once we say, okay, thank you for the interview, we'll sit down and discuss if we will think you'd be a good member or not. If we do, we'll get right back to you immediately. If we don't, we'll let you know as well. If we accept you, we do have a 90-day probationary period. During that 90 days, depending upon what region you're in and the way that your regional director does things and handles things, we do test you at least one time. We will take you in the field, whether it be something just basic or, we feel you can do a little bit more. Let's take you into an actual haunted house, but those, even though most people don't want you there without permission. So I do take people to graveyards, especially the ones I know a lot about, especially if it's one I go and assist spirits with quite a bit. But yeah, and then after that, after 90 days, you're an official member. And
Now,
then from that point, cases.
Aren't there new rules now where you have to have a certain references from
Yes.
locations, or am I wrong?
That is correct. A lot of people, they think that, okay, you don't provide information about references. Okay, we're not asking about what the case was. We just want to know who you did a case for so we can contact them and verify that is an actual case, not your grandmama. We want to have evidence that you've actually gone out on cases because, look at the times people lie in a good bit. So yes, we do prefer to have references. Just list the name and a number, and I think it's the email address as well, and we'll contact them. All thing they gotta say is yes or no. Then that is, just depending on the mode of how we contact them. And after that, you're good to go.
All right. So in those cases where we have confidential clients, and to be able to get references to give the Warren Foundation, what would you do in that respect that we can't give out personal information or confidential client information?
If it was to me personally, I would actually love to talk to the founder or the head of the group that actually keeps that information. I mean, it's not like we want details. We don't. We just want to be able to contact the person and say, did this person work this case? And all they have to say yes or no. That's it. But,
Okay.
with the way things are, we have to have some type of validation that you have the experience. Anyone can read a book or Google anything online as far as equipment goes, what other people's processes are, and they can spit it out as verbatim. Which is one of the reasons why we like to take you out in the field.
Right.
I love to see what you do and see what you know. And there are times when, yeah, I'll feed you false information because I want to see if you can debunk me. If you can debunk me, you're good in my book.
Yeah, he took me to a cemetery. We were out in the middle of nowhere in a cemetery. But the way I am, told me some stuff, but even though I know his true abilities, I don't always just go off of that. I want to see for myself. And I passed, so I must have did pretty well. But it was very, very interesting.
So how does one go about submitting a case to the Warren Foundation? So if you're not interested in joining, we got a clear vision of that. But if you have an issue and you think that this is the group that might be able to handle it, how would you go about doing that? Is there like an online form, or do you have to go through somebody else first? How does that work?
You can actually go on our website, warrenlegacy.com. We do have a section where you can fill out a form for us to come and investigate. Or if you can't get to the form, you can email us at help@warrenlegacy.com and just let us know, and then we'll direct, depending on where you live, what director you'll actually be dealing with, and they'll get back with you, and we'll send you the forms then to actually fill out and submit them back to us.
Interesting. Pretty simple.
Yeah, they're very, very thorough, very professional. And that's what I really like, that they just don't go in and say, oh, yeah, that's haunted. Yeah, it's paranormal. No, there's demons. And that's what I like. That's one thing. Very thorough to find out what the true cause is, whether it be medical issues, psychological issues, broken water pipes. There's so many other things. And now people can go out and just watch these paranormal shows on TV and, bump in the night, and they think, well, they got a spirit, they're haunted. So that's one thing I like about the Warren Foundation, that they get deep into it, find out the truth, and to truly help people, to get rid of it, or tell them what they can do to protect themselves, or, in some cases, if they don't want to get rid of the spirit, been a case that I've been on that they didn't want to get rid of the spirit. They wanted to keep the spirit, but it wasn't a bad one, so you have to do what the client wishes. So is there anything else that you would like for your for our listeners to know about the Warren Legacy Foundation, about your role with the foundation? Any more information about Chris or the Warrens?
Just if you need help, we're always here. We are an international group. If you just want to get to know more about us, go to warrenlegacy.com. It does have Chris's photo on there. Talks about his grandmother and his grandfather and his family some. You can see all of our regional directors and actually read about some information about them. Or if you just need someone to talk to, because you have a situation you're too scared to talk to anyone about, you can hit me up. You don't even have to go through, just hit me up. I don't mind talking if I have the time. And I'll call you. I'll pull a Lorraine. We can sit and talk for a few hours. I don't mind. And if you're if you're having issues, a good thing, especially dealing with me or any of our psychic mediums that's within the group, yeah, we're going to be talking to you. We're going to be reading you. We're going to be reading what's going on in your home and on your property. And if you're BSing us, we're going to know it too. But if we know that there's something there, we'll say, okay, well, we'll help you out. Let's get these forms dealt with, and we'll come out.
And if you apply, and Kenneth is one of the interviewers, he will be reading you the whole time. Found out that a little later.
Yeah, if you ever do an interview and you get me as one of your interviewers, don't expect me to say a lot because I will be sitting taking notes on you the whole time.
And he did. He's exactly right. But I was
good. Well, if it's okay with you, I usually offer to put a link in our show notes to your website, so that if anybody's interested in doing any of the things you said, reaching out, applying, looking into more information, all they have to do is go to the bottom of this episode and click the link. Is that good?
Perfectly fine.
Awesome. So I'll make sure that gets in there. And Kenneth, thank you very much for joining us tonight. It was a pleasure talking to you and learning about the true story of Ed and Lorraine, and then the Warren Foundation, which I think a lot of people are not familiar with. Hopefully they will have a better understanding of after tonight. And Jennifer, thank you for joining me on this journey, and I look forward to working with you on future episodes.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited and see what the future brings.
Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to rate and review us on your favorite streaming service. I'm Sydney Miller, and this was Not Afraid.